Good morning, everybody. Today is a topic. Wait, where's my co host? Hello? Co host? Hello?
Hello,
There you are.
can you
Today,
hear me?
I can hear you. You sound
Give me
amazing.
a sign.
You sound good. That's your sign. You sounding good.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
today is a topic we're both really excited to talk about um, because we're going to be talking about webtoons or web comics. Mostly web comics, but webtoons because one of our favorite webtoons is there, and we're
Yep,
super stoked.
very
So,
stoked. Very, and it's not only our favorite; it's the one that we've been able to keep up with through 2020. But we have a lot actually on the Webtoons app and
mhm,
website that we both really, really like.
yes. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask, what is your like first web comic that you like? Because when did you first start reading web comics? Because I know webtoons wasn't around for a while.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's
what?
fairly new, but it's not it's older than we both realize.
Yeah.
Especially after 2020 being 6 years long.
Right. Oh, right.
I what was it? I remember I remember in high school, like friends who didn't go to my school, but like friends in my same age group
Hmm.
were talking about this webcomic, and I don't really remember what it is, but that one was definitely my first one. And it was something like Wizard for Hire or Magician for Hire.
Mm.
And I ca- and it's long. The art, like you could tell the art would progress every chapter. Was storyline wasn't terrible. Um and it was kind of like a one panel kind of chapter deal.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then what was my next one? The second one was Sunstone
Hold up. I'm looking
on
this up. So,
DeviantArt.
hold up. I'm looking this up.
Yeah, you're gonna recognize that art as soon. It's not the same person. It's her husband.
Oh,
You're
yes,
gonna.
yes, yes, yes. Yes, you
Yep,
and I have talked about this one. Yes.
we have talked about this one.
Yeah.
Thus leading because there's a husband and wife kind of duo. They kind of do their own I guess web comics because they both release their work onto DeviantArt.
Yeah.
But he has gotten that book published. There are published books of this now.
Mm.
Um, so DeviantArt, so Sunstone moved into Bloodstein, and then I don't like when I was on DeviantArt. I don't think the wife, who was the author of Bloodstein,
Oh, yes.
um, had released Punderworld yet. Like she had some like concept art and stuff, but she
Hmm.
hadn't done Punderworld yet.
And I will also say that Punderworld is a comic that we've been reading on Webtoons, so you can read it on Webtoons if you'd like. Um,
And it updates like every 3 weeks,
yeah. Anyway,
so you gotta
continue.
wait.
Yeah.
Um, and then I kept getting ads for webtoons on like Facebook, which is where you get all your ads.
Yeah.
And I don't
I don't, wait,
really
pause.
go
I
ahead.
don't think. Well, I guess because Instagram is a part of Facebook, then yeah. But I remember the what was it? Instagram had more pictures for me to like scroll through, and it
Hmm.
was Instagram that got me to read webtoons. But I don't remember what comic it was. I think it was like it wasn't Laura Olympus. I think it was something else.
Right.
But yeah.
Um, like, and this was several years ago because I know that I was reading something on Webtoon. Oh, I remember what it was. It's like some of my old school stuff, um the God of High School, the Gamer. Like this is what got me into Webtoons, the website.
Yeah.
And those like what was it? I have my list right here. I should just stop being dumb and look at it. There's some old ones. Old. Um, Gotta get going. Ooh, no, don't click on that. Even further down the rabbit hole. So like the Gamers, God of High School, Dr. Frost, was it Cheese in the Trap? Like I found like
Oh
I kept
yeah.
finding more stuff.
Cheese in a Trap is also now a K-drama. Just putting that out
It
there.
is, and
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. It's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. But these were very, very, very long, well-established webcomics on Webtoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we've talked about it last week, but I binged on all of that way too hard and ended up getting burned out on it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I just binged 200 chapters each of these things. And I had like 7 or 8 comics that I were keeping up with. I'm like, I gotta stop. And I dropped it for 2 years. And then
Oh my
what
gosh.
brought me back, or like 2.5 years, what brought me back was Lore Olympus.
Oh, I see.
And then like I started picking up some old stuff, finding new stuff, uh like talking with you, talking with other friends, getting more and more stuff, finding what is it? Irma, which is like a little cute little couple of page panels that tell a little story about Sonara's daughter, Theory daughter, Sonara from The Ring. She has a daughter
Oh
named
yes, yes,
Irma, and
yes.
it's super cute and
I
super
did see
creepy. And I'm
that.
like, so I'm like not only finding new stuff to read, I am finding a reliable way to find like Sarah Scribbles and Beasting Brutus
Yes,
like in
yes.
order and can keep track of that for me because I'm not good about that. I am
Right.
really, really bad about that.
Okay. So one of the first this is why I say like first ever webcomics because in high school, this is like my high school experiences low, so it'd be like the 2000s, all right?
Yeah.
I read so many webcomics that I wish I could remember the names of, but
Oh yeah.
like, 'cause like, it was just, I read it in class, and they didn't do shit about it because like I would sneak in and like read some and then do my work and then read some more because they taught you what like how to use the internet because it was like some computer class and then they let you go free and quote unquote learn the internet and and how to use it. And of course, I went to webcomics. I just read webcomics. Um, I remembered shit like what was it? I have it pulled up for here for a reason. Mega Tokyo. And because I remember Mega Tokyo was one of the first like big comics back in the day because it was actually
Mhm.
picked up by Tokyo Pop and printed.
Oh
And
yeah.
like that was a huge deal back then for like manga artists and stuff like that because it is it's a very weird manga-ish style but not really,
Mm.
but it was huge. And they had also, what was it? Okay, I wasn't a furry. Let me just go ahead and say that. I don't think I'm a furry. However, if y'all read Lackadaisy, which is now also on Webtoons, Lackadaisy was something made in 2006, I think. It was made in 2006. And if I found it on DeviantArt, like you did, right? When you started.
Like a lot
Um,
of stuff was found like started on DeviantArt.
yes, it did start on DeviantArt. And I remember reading it on DeviantArt. And then finally, they're actually on Webtoons, so I suggest you check it out because the art is amazing, and it's like, what was it? It deals with the Prohibition era, the 20s, and it's all cats, and it's so pretty, and like art is beautiful. It's like really cool. I suggest you read it. It's also on Webtoons, but like when I found out that that was on Webtoons, I freaked the fuck out because I remember I loved that comic. It's so good. That was one of them. There was another comic that was just a comedy kind of slice of life comic, and I cannot remember what the name was because that one was, oh shit, I can't remember. That was one of my favorites, and I cannot remember what the name was. And it involved a bunch of weebs and weeaboos who go and like do all of the anime tropes, like in all forms of like anime and manga. So like all the shonen tropes and all of that. And it was just comedy. And it pisses me off. I cannot remember what the title of it is. I'm sure if I look in my old like past journals or whatever from high school, I'll see it. But I can't
Yeah.
for the life of me remember what they was. All right, so I asked in the chat what some of their comics were. Zamer says Tale of the Unusual. Oh, that is the one that's also on Webtoons. I've read all of those as well. That's really creepy and good. Uh, Undead Ed. I don't know if I've read that one.
I think I've heard
Wait, The
of.
Last Days of Foxhound. Is that like Metal Gear based comic? And Order of the Stick. I don't think I've heard of Order of the Stick. Um, but yeah,
I
I
think I've
remember.
heard of Undead Ed.
I don't remember what Undead. It sounds familiar, but I don't remember that. And of course, Megatopia was making everyone speak leet speak. Oh, for early nerds, you're right. And I remember Megatopia was like a huge, huge deal. But I say this, I wanted to go ahead and start with the early comics because we're going to talk about the one comic that I know everyone has heard of. And if you haven't heard of it, then you must not been like an early weeb or you will end up hearing about it. And that is Homestuck.
Oof.
And Homestuck was created in 2009. It says here, April 13th, 2009. And Homestuck, how would you describe? We don't talk about Homestuck. That never happened. It happened. We have to accept it as nerds. It happened.
I mean, I'll Homestuck
How?
before I accept a certain M Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh yeah, no.
Mm.
Homestuck. You can't like. Oh my gosh. I only read a few chapters of Homestuck. I will admit that right now, because when it was kicking off in like the 2010s, and it started like really picking up, and you could tell it was really picking up because half of the cosplayers at conventions that you would go to were Homestuck cosplayers.
So many.
And
So fucking many.
oh no, oh man, I remember all of my friends would read it. Like it was a big deal. And I think, wasn't there a
At
movie that was
least
supposed to come out
one. I
eventually?
was about to say. I was gonna say like at least one person in like a hotel room would it be cosplaying Homestuck
Oh
at
yeah.
least one point.
Yep. And I remember the pictures. I was friends with some of them, and so of course they're like, Ricey, you have to read Homestuck. I mean, you'd love it, and I get it. I would probably love it. However, it is it's a giant of a web comic to read, and
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the there's a lot of filler episodes, like a lot of filler
Hmm.
chapters even. Um, so like it's a monster of a web comic to read, but at the same time, it is a classic. It will forever be a classic. You can't. You're gonna have to, you're gonna read it eventually. Like it was just it paved the way for a lot of web comics today, and I guarantee you a lot of people who read web comics would have read Homestuck. And I think that was the last.
Like
I was gonna say I think that was the last big comic, like web comic, because after that was like done and over with.
yeah.
I read like like slice of life and comics, like you said, Sarah Scribbles. There was Exo Comics that I've recently found again on Instagram, but I think she's putting it somewhere else. But Exo Comics was another slice of life comic, which is super adorable. I love her, and it's just like super nice. Uh, but yeah, let's see here.
Oh,
Hold on. Oh,
uh, to
go ahead.
address Monty, yes, Castle Swimmers is very good. It's super cute. I've never heard of House Pets, and Monty is actually the one that suggested Newman to me that you see me laughing my ass off about at work that I
Yes, I do.
binge read when I
Yes.
was sick last year. It's very, very good. It is very D&D humor. It's like it's almost what I wish Disenchanted would be.
Oh, I see.
It's so, so good.
Also,
Ava's Demon was
I know
one
of
that I had
Ava's Demon.
forgotten.
Yeah, I do know of Ava's Demon, but I've never read Ava's Demon. But it's come across my feed, like
I
some meme or something.
actually knew about that because Leet the Punk on
Mm.
Twitter, who
Mm-hmm.
I'm friends with, he he tweeted about it at one point. It's like, oh, I read the latest chapter, or oh, like I finally caught up to whatever's current. I'm like, oh, okay, but like more webcomics.
Yeah.
Like I can totally get into like seeing what others are about. And this was when it was still a website that would update a
Yes.
panel at a time.
The websites, like that's how it used to be. You would just go on the website, and like you don't go to webtoons now. Like those didn't exist. You would just go on a website, on the website that they've created to read all these comics. I bet that's expensive though. Now that I think about it, but
And well, like it's also hard to keep track of, like, because it's like, oh, like I don't really exactly remember where I was. It's been like a year. I don't remember what chapter I left off at, all that stuff. And it with Ava's Demon at the very least, it was a singular panel at a time. And so it is like, oh, a single panel with 2 sentences and on to the next one. And you had to click through each page. It's like, okay, next. It was a lot.
so
I'm very, very grateful that they are on Webtoons now, so I don't have to keep track of where I am.
yeah. So I remember this is going back to 2010s era, okay? Did any of y'all read Helvetica? That was apparently so I knew of Helvetica because it was a comic that was inspirational to create Undertale, the game. And actually, Toby Fox created two skeletons based off of the comic Helvetica. So of course I read it, and it's sad because I read it and it never finished.
Oh,
Yeah, the
I
last
hate
update was
that.
I know, it's the worst. It's the last update was 2017. But if you guys want a good comic based off like what Toby Fox was inspired by, I also suggest Helvetica. But it's also a it's not posted on Webtoons. You'd have to go on the website because old school 2010. It was first created in 2011, and so yeah, I was so heartbroken. But now like it's just web comics. So let me ask you then, what does your current list look like for web comics?
I was about to say Lore Olympus. That's
Is
the only one I'm keeping up with. But it's like I do have actually a lot, and like a lot of them are actually finished. Like I had finished them, so there's really
Yeah.
no reason for me to like go back. Um, so like some of my favorites that I had finished, one of them is Always Human.
Oh
I had
yes.
actually, she was another one that I'd found on DeviantArt. Me and my husband had found on like DeviantArt and
Mm-hmm.
was reading. And then it went on like a hiatus on DeviantArt or something, and we just stopped reading it. And then it's like, oh shit, this as well is on Webtoons. So I finished that. What is it? Orange Marmalade was a
Oh
fantastic one
yes.
that it again finished that I really liked. Witch Hunt was very good. I like it's weird. I really loved it. One that I got you to actually read that was a little on the shorter side than a lot of these others was, let's see if I can pronounce it. It's Anara Sumanaro.
Yes. Yes.
You know that black and white one with the
Yes, I
really,
do.
really
It was really
ridiculously
interesting.
long. It's it's weird, but it's
Here's
got good
something.
art.
So here's something I found out. while speaking with like the web comics. Did you
Hmm.
know that Noblesse, which is a webtoon comic that I know a lot of people have had ads for,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was a comic that was created in 2000 and hold up. 2000 hold up. I literally just saw it. Holy crap. 2007. So that comic was probably one of those because it was a Korean web comic.
Yeah.
And uh it's interesting cuz that's been going on for a long time. As well like Lackadaisy. But like I didn't realize that that comic started out as like a just genuine web comic that I would have read in my teen years.
Yeah.
That's so crazy to me. But I'm so sorry. Go keep going. I actually am going to read that now that I know that. So,
Right. Um, and there are others that aren't finished, and that just hurts me
it
deeply. I'm
does
like,
hurt.
I want to continue reading this. I really like what you're doing. Like Snail Lord's Nightmare Factory. Like
Oh,
I know
yes.
I've
Yes, yes.
gotten you to read Freaking Romance, and that should,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure at this point, be finished or be within like 3 or 4 weeks of finishing. Um and Snail Lords was never able to finish Nightmare Factory for the same reason they never really conclude, like why they concluded Snailology, which is their slice of life comic that they did, was because they have a hand injury and they
Yeah.
overexert themselves drawing
Good.
because they're trying to make the weekly deadline, and it's just like, cool, do what Bloodstain and Punderworld do and upload like once a month,
Right.
once every 6 week. I will wait as long as you're regular with it and I get the quality that you have.
Can
Another
we?
heartbreaking one that, oh,
Oh,
you're
okay.
gonna be mad about this too because I think I'm the one that introduced you to it, was The Devil is a Handsome Man.
Yeah, no, no.
They went on
Actually,
a
no. You didn't introduce me to it. I know that for a fact. I remember how I got into it because I was reading a bunch of my other comics that I'd finished through, before they did the whole, you know, the finished comics and then like you can go and read finished comics, but now you can
yeah.
read finished comics one day at a time. Like they'll unlock after like a day, which sucks.
I was about to
Um,
say I am not a once a day kind of person. I
yeah, me
binge
either.
read for like eight
Same.
hours a day. I'm like,
Same. It's to prevent binge reading, which makes me mad, but it's whatever. Anyway, however, I remember the Devil is a Handsome Man. I remember talking to you about it actually because
yeah, like we have a
when
lot of
I
things that are very similar, but also
right,
things that it's like, oh, you're gonna love this, and I'm at this
yeah,
point, it's just like we can't remember. I'm like, did I introduce that to you? Did you
no,
introduce it to me? Did we
I
find it on our own? And
no, because like
just
I remember finding it on my own because when I found out web comics existed, I was like kind of overwhelmed, you know,
mm-hmm.
with what to read and whatever. So I looked up on Google. I asked Google, what's the best web comics to read for romance or mystery or horror or whatever, which I will talk about because I love horror. That is, and then they said Devil is a Handsome Man. So I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll read it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the art. And this is
Oh my
before I met you.
god,
This is way before I met
yeah.
you. I loved the art. The art is so clean and unique. Loved the
Oh
art.
my god.
And then I was like, oh, and then it was because I looked up other people's opinions and such about what their favorite web comics were that I
Mm-hmm.
started reading it as well. For example, my favorites currently are Grammary Land, which is a horror comic,
Yeah.
which, by the way, if we're talking horror comics, let me just sidetrack here. If we're talking
Cool.
horror comics and you're reading on webtoons, please, please, please read. Well, I guess Tales of the Unusual isn't technically horror, but it is kind of horror, but it's really unique. I really liked it. Um, Read Melvina's Therapy. That's a good
Yes.
one. It's horror. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Melvina's Therapy. Read now. It's what is it? Sweet Home, something like that.
Okay, so yeah, Sweet
Hold up, hold up,
Home
hold up.
is a, well,
It is
like I read his other work,
right.
which is
But
Bastard, which is, it's not like a gore horror or supernatural horror. It
right,
is very psychological horror.
right. We'll get to Sweet Home because that's also important. Sweet Home is a good one if you've read it, and I'm pretty sure you've heard of it because now it's on Netflix. But we'll
Yeah.
talk about those in a second. Um, I've also read, what was it? Grammary Land, Malvina's Therapy, Tales of the Unusual, Sweet
Malvina's
Home.
the
There was
author for
another
those
one.
two. If you're talking about the one that his third little one that he did was
Yeah.
Phasmatopia.
Yes. Like just
Also,
the artist and author is fantastic. Really, really good. So I suggest if you want a good horror, definitely check that out. There was another one. You know what? I'm gonna pull up my thing. Um,
I don't know why you didn't do that already because I've had mine pulled up.
well, because I
Um,
was doing it all by memory, and so again, I'm going through my favorites here. So comedy wise, if you're, I know it's a lot of people are like, oh, romance comedy. Hush, romance comedy. If you want something to good thing to laugh at, would be True Beauty.
True Beauty is actually pretty funny. I
The expressions that they draw in True Beauty is hilarious to me. And True Beauty actually is very funny, and it's also on Netflix. They created there was
oh
a Korean
right.
drama on Netflix. Um, let's see, you have Ghost Teller, which is a very unique horror because it's a bunch of ghosts telling the stories of why humans are more terrifying than ghosts and
Yeah,
other
so it's
monsters.
not like super. I mean, yeah, because we're talking about ghosts and monsters and stuff, but it's not the stories they tell aren't like, oh, and then there was like a knock and nobody was there. It's like, no, it's telling like the ugly side, the scary side of humans is
Oh,
very.
right. Might I also suggest for horror, silent horror? It's a very unique take. There is no word said. So it's just the drawings of pictures. And it's called silent horror.
I forgot one that both of us know that we have read before webtoons was an early comic, and I don't remember what it was, but you know what I'm talking about. It's that horror comic that went around in probably about between 2011 and 2013.
Which one? Oh, the
And
one with the it was
the
animated?
scrolling,
Yes,
yes.
yes. I think you can find it here on the on Webtoons. I feel like I found it on Webtoons.
I want to say it's on a web comic app somewhere. I'm not 100% sure that it is webtoons though.
Mm.
I know you're right. It is on something like it. But oh Lord, nothing hits as scary as that did.
I'm just reading Zamer's thing. Flow ended. I need to reread it, but it got back. Oh, yeah. No, trust me. I that shit hurts. Just finding a comic that you've been reading for a while and then you cannot read it anymore.
I I know. I got several of those. What was there was another one that we both are like, "Oh, this is like surprisingly good." Or weren't expecting to really enjoy this one was I'm having to scroll through.
That's okay. While you're looking for that, I have one that I think I should suggest. If y'all
Witch
really,
Creek Road.
oh yes, oh yes, that's a really
Yeah.
good horror comic.
And it's like it for those who have read Lock and Key. And I'm talking about
Oh
reading it, not
yes.
watching it on Netflix because I haven't seen it on Netflix, so I can't judge it. It reminds me of that slow build, but when the horror hits and the gore hits, it hits
It's
hard, and
hard. And I
it
love
is
it. It's such a unique story. Like I
it
mean,
is.
it's so interesting.
So
That is a good one. I can't believe I forgot it, and it's in my favorites, but I didn't read it.
that's why I'm like we just gotta scroll through.
Right. I was also going to suggest as well if y'all like some good like adventure, action adventure, which is technically what I also love. Room of Swords is a really
You
good one.
haven't talked to me about that one.
Oh yes, I'm sure I have ages ago.
Mm,
Room of
mm.
Swords is a very interesting one as well. I quite enjoy it. It plays out like a video game, like a Final
Okay.
Fantasy game, and I
Mhm.
don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but it's really good. Like I really like the action adventure in that. But
That's why I think you would really like The Gamer because it's this kid who suddenly has this ability to see the world as a game and
Mm-hmm.
thus can level up like a game.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah,
reads
yeah.
a book, he gains +1 in knowledge. He works out, he gains +1 in strength.
Mm-hmm.
He runs for an hour, he gets +1 in endurance. And he just does that constantly.
So let me ask you a question
Yes,
while we're doing
yes.
that. We're gonna
Ooh.
segue.
Oh,
Speaking of
are
those
we?
things,
Can we?
yes, yes, we are. Because my thing is this: we've talked about the webcomics. We've offered a few recommendations from our favorites. Um, I, well, how do I word this properly? With a lot of webcomics in general,
Yeah.
going to mainstream media in some way, shape, or form, what are some you think would translate better into mainstream media? For example, you
Okay.
saw like we talked about True Beauty, we
Yeah.
talked about Sweet Home. There's and for the anime lovers out there, Tower of God was one of them, as well as something high
The God of
school,
High School.
the God of High School. Right. So those are like
Currently out.
right, they cater to like the K-drama lovers, like for True Beauty, or the horror lovers with Sweet Home. And then you have the anime lovers with Tower of God as well as God of High School. Um like what do you think would transfer really well into mainstream media in your
So
opinion?
could it be, does it have to be in series form? Can it be movie? Does it have to be live action? Can it be animation?
It could be anything. Like I'm just
Okay.
saying in mainstream media, because I will say this as well. Lackadaisy, which I've talked about, the little
Mm-hmm.
the what was it, Prohibition era with cats.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're creating an animated series, which I am super thrilled for. Like I'm
Yeah.
excited for that. Um, I don't know. Is Noblesse is that also one that has been? Let me check
I
this out.
don't know yet. That's gonna be hard to kind of say because it's like Lackadaisy, I'm like, it's cute. I wouldn't mind seeing an animation for it, but I feel like because it has so much detail dedicated to it,
Apparently,
that a
there's
lot
two
of that
OVAs.
detail could get lost in animation,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
How so? I would think if.
Um, they would have to have like a huge ass budget
Mm-hmm.
to be able to like get all those like fine details, like background details, character details, and things like that included, or it's just gonna kind of get like the details gonna get toned down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yes, I would, and I don't want a live action Lackadaisy because
No,
cats.
I don't. I don't think it
I'm
should
like,
ever
I'm
be a
like,
live.
cats
I
is like
don't.
traumatizing.
No, I don't think it would ever be a live action. However, I do think that it would look really well animated. I mean, there's already work in progresses, videos of it being animated, and I
Yeah.
honestly, I love it. It looks amazing animated because it was meant to be animated. It wasn't meant to be a live action in any way, shape, or form. Um, and it looks amazing. Oh, I'll send you after the podcast. I'll send you the picture or like the video of the creator making
Mhm.
it because it's awesome. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But like,
Okay, so well, you asked me like what would work for mainstream media. And I'm assuming just like whatever's gonna work. It could end up on Hulu, it could end up on HBO, it could end up on Netflix or TV or whatever. And these are just some of the things that have recently updated on my series that I can just go through really quickly. Tales from the Tombstone. It's really cute. It's very stylized. I think that would be good. Um, Animation, kind of
mm-hmm,
like the fan videos, or fan made music videos,
mm-hmm.
for Voltaire. If you remember which one I'm talking about, I
I
don't
think
remember.
so. Right.
Um, I think Witch Creek Road could actually
Mm.
be really good live action.
I think it
I
would,
think they could
but
do.
I think it would look good live action. But I'm also terrified of how the and you know me, I'm terrified of how the CG would look for the monsters and such like that. But I would love to see the gore in all
Right.
its live action goriness. You know,
And
I
that's
think
where
that
I'm
would be
like, well,
awesome.
like a lot of it could be done with practical effects as a base and then kind of like touched in with CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but personally, it's like I don't see a lot of these things working very well live action wise.
Well, it
Except
doesn't
for
have to
Witch
be.
Creek Road.
As like I said, like mainstream media doesn't have to be live action. For example, I
Right.
also think that Room of Swords. I honestly suggest that to be a video game. I would love to play that as a video game because it looks like it is like a video game. And story wise, I really would love to see that as a video game more than like an anime or anything like that. I know that sounds weird, but I genuinely believe that. Same with Tower of God. Tower of God, I know it's an anime,
Yeah.
but I would love to see that as like a video game. However, I wish I could choose my own. Like if you've ever read the comics, you have your friends, your team, you build a team and then go through it. I want to build my own team. That's the only thing. Like I just want to build my own team. uh but yeah, like that to me I think would be interesting. Another I think would be really good to see whether live action. I actually would love to see this in live action. Would be Purple Hyacinth as
Purple Hyacinth. That was gonna be my next one. But my thing is,
I love
let's just
crime
go ahead
shows.
and
Listen,
say
I love crime shows, and
I
Purple
do.
Hyacinth would be
But
amazing. Okay, can you just imagine?
okay, but she has that power
Listen.
that it's like, okay, how are you gonna convey that without written text?
I mean, there are ways. I mean, I'm
I
sure
know,
there are
but
ways.
that's
And
the question though. It's like, how would you? Because if it's live
well,
action,
okay,
how are you
first of
gonna
all,
do
but she's
that?
it's okay. First of all, even if as we read it as a comic, we can understand it, but it doesn't. And she says she just knows, she senses it because she doesn't read the words as in red and be like, oh, that's a lie, because she can't see the words like that. I
But
think
she
that there's a way.
knows, like,
Yeah,
there
exactly.
has to be a
So
known way that us as the audience, know that that person was lying.
there are ways to do it. Like like I said, I'm a big fan of criminal shows.
Hmm.
There are ways like in Psych, the comedy criminal,
Yeah,
Psych,
that.
where he just flashes, it zooms in on the things that he's noticed. Something like that can happen. She can zoom in or like on or hear the word
But
and it
this
like
is like
zooms
a
in on that
very
word.
serious tone.
Yeah, I'm
Like, it
saying
has
that,
some of
but
its
like
funny
you have
moments,
the
but it's like,
no, okay,
mhm.
so I mean, it's you can make that into something not as serious. Like, I mean, it could still play out as something serious. Because, like, I've seen, what was it? Criminal Minds would do something like that. The Mentalist did. Like, I've watched so many crime shows. Oh, Dexter. Like, shit like that. You have, like, comedy bits, but in all honesty, it's very, very serious at times as well. I think that writers could definitely, especially if you talk to the creator of Purple Hyacinth or creators, I think that it would be translated very well into live action. Very, very well. Only because, me personally, I've watched a lot of shows that could translate all of that. And I, as an audience, recognize, oh, this is the thing they want us to focus on, or these are the words they want us to focus on, because there are triggers that allow you to do that. Also, I would love to see the main characters and like a live action version of the main
So, girl,
characters.
yes, no, like, absolutely. Like, I think animation would be really cool and everything, but no, like, she is pretty, he is
Gorgeous.
gorgeous. Thank you. He is
He's
gorgeous.
gorgeous. She's gorgeous, but he's
She's
gorgeous.
very, yeah, she is beautiful. I think like, all of it's gorgeous, and I think
Mm-hmm. The art, the
I
mystery.
also right.
Oh.
I think
Oh.
Punderworld would have to stay animated, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see that kind of art in animation. I would love to
But,
see
like,
that in animation.
I was about to say, they're like, her and her husband both have just such beautiful
Art styles.
works
Mm-hmm.
that it's just like I that's what makes me want to read it is their art.
Let me pause for a second here
Yeah.
and read. Zamer said, "Let's go full circle." M. Night Shyamalan, Homestuck, perfect for the pandemic audience. Homestuck is. Weren't they
No.
supposed to promise a movie actually? Because I mean, it still falls into the mainstream media. Wasn't Homestuck supposed to have a movie, but then something happened? Like something happened, I remember, and like it was a big controversy about Homestuck and
Is it?
shit. I wasn't.
I
I wasn't a
didn't
fan of.
know.
Uh, Homestuck fandoms. I know I'm calling you guys out, but if you remember, wasn't there like a big scandal or something? I thought there was supposed to be like a Homestuck movie, but they got canceled for reasons. But I remember there's something wrong with Homestuck that but I don't remember what the scandal was. Because again, I'm not a big Homestuck fan. I only read a few
We're
chapters.
not. But
I'm really not. I couldn't keep up. I just couldn't keep up. It's the same reason I don't read One Piece. I can't keep up. I will never be able to keep up reading One Piece. It's
at this point, I'm
impossible.
just like, I'm gonna just wait.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna wait.
It's so
Um,
much. I feel like I've missed the train on that one for sure.
so question. Midnight Poppyland. I'm behind on it,
I
but
am too.
I have
Very behind.
same. I have not been able to keep up with much of anything after 2020, but I don't. The art is very beautiful. The stylization of everything's beautiful. I don't know if I want that in animation or live action, honestly.
That is a very unique art style. I can't say. Also, I haven't read much to see if it would translate well between either of those two.
Right. And it doesn't have like a lot of fantasy because it's kind of like slice of life. It's just like
Hmm.
it's not high fantasy. It's just normal day-to-day kind of thing
Hmm.
with the mob, but you know, that's normal too.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot that needs to be super whimsical or anything like that. So it's like it is much more feasibly doable to do live action than, let's say, Witch Creek Road.
Oh, yes. See, I can.
But these characters are so uniquely drawn that I don't want my to be disappointed by the live
Oh,
action actor
right,
and
right, right.
actress.
Okay, that's a valid point. Speaking of Witch Creek Road, I would love to see either Melvina's Therapy and or no, mostly I would love to see Grammary Land in live action
Okay, yeah, I
because
can.
could you imagine having the set look as creepy as it does in the comic? Like it's
Right,
so
like, oh
creepy.
my god, and it's enclosed too, so
It
it's
is
just
enclosed.
like it's because it's enclosed, it's a lot more feasible to do
Right.
than like an open world city kind of thing. Let's say like Midnight Poppyland, which is based in South Korea.
Yes. Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
in a major city, I don't remember which major city. So it's like most recent example, Midnight Poppyland, harder to do because you'd have to do it on the streets.
Mhm.
You can't really stage that very easily, but Grimmery Land, enclosed, minimal people. I
I think
I'm with
creating
you. I would really like to see that.
I was like, say, creating a set for Grammary Land would be amazing because I would love to see how they would be able to translate that into live action. Because you have like a haunted theme park. Hell yeah. And you know, the deaths are really interesting. Hell
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh
Like,
my god, yeah.
it's just, right. It's so interesting to me.
Now we say Grimmery Land for live action. I would love to see just like Melvina's Therapy in animation, especially for
I
that
don't know.
one. Like, oh my god, because one reminds me of Uzumaki,
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
like,
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
I want to see that in animation, but it's just like it's art in and of itself to have it still.
I see, I don't know. I would love because Uzumaki was also a live action movie.
I didn't
So
know that.
yes, yes, it was. It's not that long. You know, of course they really
Right.
they cut
They
the
had to
stories
cut.
so short. Like let me just tell you, and the CG is okay. Like it's all right,
I bet that it's a little bit on the older side, and we've discussed in like previous podcasts that like CG can age out very quickly.
very much. But it's if you, like that actually was a live action film. You can watch it.
Hmm.
And again, it's really creepy, even the live action, which is why I would love to see that, the Melvina's Therapy, especially the one that you were talking about, because it's like everything is repeated, like fractals.
Yes.
That I would love to see in live action. Like, it's
I don't.
so interesting to see
There's
that.
one part though
I don't want to
closer to
spoil
the end.
anything. I was going to say, I
Right.
don't really want to spoil anything because it's, for
It's
those who've not
good.
read it, yes, if y'all really do want a good horror, please, please, please read Melvina's Therapy. It's finished, so you can just read it, and it deals a lot with. It's a horror story, but it's a horror story that deals with mental illnesses, which is very interesting to see. So I would suggest y'all read that. Like, it's very, very, it's very fun. Like a very fun, good read. Will it give you nightmares? Maybe.
Maybe.
But it's
Not.
it's still good.
It's
Like,
good. It's so good. It's
it's
so
very
good.
good, and like it's just I can't suggest that enough. As well as Witch Creek Road. Witch Creek Road is good for like a fantastical fantasy kind of thing. But
It
the
kind of
others,
reminds me of like Cthulhian horror.
yes, but this one
Yeah.
is deals with mental illnesses, which is very interesting because the creator who wrote it because he had mental illness, and he wanted to be able to convey his art in such a way. Please read it. It's so good.
So good. It's so
Um,
good. It's so good. Another one I'd like to see live action that you suggested to me was Enjoy the Show. I think that would
oh, that would be,
translate
oh, very much.
adorably to like a TV series, a live
I think
action TV
so.
series.
I'm so scared though, because like I think that would be great as a TV series. I don't know if I want it to be like American stylized TV series, if that makes sense. Unless it's
It's in
exactly,
America.
yeah, because like it's unless it's exactly like the story. Cause I just don't want it to be like cutesy and Nickelodeon Disney ish. Does that make sense?
Okay, fair. Like, but I don't want like okay, so I'm not thinking like, oh, this has to be like a Cartoon Network kind of like no, I'm like I
No.
want like a Netflix
Yeah, Netflix can be a little bit
Enjoy
more
the Show.
mature. Yeah.
Or like well, let's not do HBO because HBO you're getting into like
Because you're dealing with
stuff.
a character in her like late 20s maybe.
Right.
And I'm
I'm okay
like,
with like Netflix or Hulu doing Enjoy the
yeah.
Show.
Yeah. That would be fun to see. Like really really fun to see. But don't
Um
make it like Disney Nickelodeon show esque cuz like
no.
no. You know
Ugh.
what I mean? Yeah,
Ugh.
thank you. All right.
No.
Before we're coming up to the last 30 minutes. And this is something I know you're going to love to talk about. Um So Zamer, a few minutes back, said something about a few wuxia and I cannot Shianai novels from manhwas got adapted into mainstream. And this I know. What would be some manhwas if you've read any? I mean, I guess there's some that you already know are mainstream, correct?
Like I would imagine like manhwas are like not webcomic.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are like
so you
being
wouldn't put them
physically
in.
produced already. I feel like manhwas to me are like physical productions of Chinese comics.
So
or
when you say
graphic novels,
physical
whatever
productions, what do you mean?
like books, like hard copy books. Like this is like if it's no longer digital.
So okay, so if it's a
So
book,
it's not like
so it's okay. So it's not like a comic. It's an actual
it's
like.
not it's not a
Mm,
web comic at that point. It is a physical manhwa.
I
Like I
see.
don't really pay too much attention to unless it's like clearly stated in like the descriptor or at some point in the story. Like I don't really pay that much attention to where a lot of what I read is based out of. Like Midnight Poppy Land, it is clearly stated that it's in South Korea. Enjoy the Show is clearly stated that it's based in Nevada. Ghost Tales, it's clearly stated it's in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Or very key indicators like clothing or phrasing, titles, things like that can let me know where this is based in. Other than that, I just don't pay attention. Like Yokai Day, clearly that's
Oh yeah.
Japanese because yokai is exclusively a Japanese term. Um, there's another one maybe. Phantom Paradise. I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing that's wuxia because it's kind of talking about the afterlife and based off the clothing. I'm assuming I should really do research. I'm assuming it's Chinese. Yeah, so like the only one that it's like martial arts immortality kind of thing that I've read on webtoons is Phantom Paradise. And I've kind
Mm-hmm.
of like
Mm-hmm.
I binged it and kind of I had burnout and haven't picked it up since. But it's good. It's gorgeous. But I need to pick it up again because I at this point I don't really remember what's happening.
Right, 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 right. Still, okay, because those are the when you say it's a physical copy.
Yeah.
If by that argument, would you? And
I
I'm
can
just
pick it up and smack you with it if I need to.
okay. So in that vein, webcomics who actually published their comics into a physical copy, would that be considered that as well? Like,
I would say that
would it no longer be
I
considered a
wouldn't call it a
webcomic?
manhwa. I wouldn't call it a
No, of course
manhwa.
not. But like,
I would
I
call it something like a this is a produced copy of a webcomic.
well, manhwas are specifically for, like you said, Chinese, or
Yeah.
yes,
Like
obviously,
manga is exclusive to Japan, manhwa is exclusive to China. It's
right. So,
basically all the same thing, just
but
different names.
by that logic, we're not using the term manhwa because it's not. These are American based comics. So by that thing, would you also say that all the web comics that were physically made, that you can purchase at like a con table, at the artist alley tables,
Mhm.
would they no longer be considered webtoons for that reason?
No, because their primary it's like where they originated from and where they are still currently present is still online. Like Sunstone is still present on DeviantArt, is still fully accessible on DeviantArt. Yes, he has made physical copies. He has published physical copies of these books, but that is a published copy of a webcomic.
Okay, I think I see what you mean because okay, I
Because
oh,
like
because like you said, manhwas are
Batman,
physical copies of books that you can smacking me on the head with. But
it's
so
like
can you find web comics that you can find like what was it? Do you
but I
remember
wouldn't.
Hyperbole and a Half? Do you remember Hyperbole and a Half? It was a very funny web comic based in 2000 where hold up, let me see if I can show you this meme here. Um
Like, so let's take Dojins for a second.
mhm.
Our settings to mature, right?
Yeah?
um, let's take Dojins for a second. Well, Dojins aren't necessarily manga because Dojins is the Japanese term for it. They're
Right.
not manga, but
Mhm.
they're not necessarily webcomics either. They're their own category.
Okay.
So, like, webcomics are their own category. Manhwa is their own category. Yes, we can take webcomics and physically produce them and thus making them, in a sense, a manhwa or a manga wherever you are.
Mhm.
But it's a physically produced webcomic. Just like we can take manhwas and mangas and whatever the Korean term is, and I'm sorry for my ignorance, and digitally upload them, but that is still considered a scanlation of a manga
Right,
or
right,
a
right.
manhwa.
Oh, okay, okay. I see. Okay. All right. I see what you mean. Also, I
Okay.
sent you the thing, which once you see it, oh, this is from Hyperbole and a Half.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's also a webcomic. And if for
Also, I'm
anyone who
not
doesn't
doing
know,
that today.
yeah.
I'm not
For
doing that today.
any of you guys, if y'all seen the meme, clean all the things or something like blank all the things or something blank all the blank.
We're
That meme,
readers. What do we want? To read. When do
yes.
we want to read them? Now.
Yeah, that kind of meme, that was actually based off a web comic called Hyperbole and a Half. And I read that also between like high school and college. It's really good. And the reason why I brought that up is because now the creator, she has made several books based off
Hey.
those web comics, which is like very cool. Also, if you really like them, they're really funny to read. But yeah, no, those are like really good books. Like those are also something, web comics or whatever. Um,
I'm
but it
also
started off as a
not trying
web
to
comic.
say that like a web comic artist is exclusive to digital or exclusive to
Obviously.
physical. Like Sarah Scribbles has her
Oh, good
series, her
one.
little what of like slice of life comedy
Mm-hmm.
things that is online, but she has also produced a book that is now published
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see.
that isn't online. Like some
Right.
of she kind of teased it. It's like, oh, look at what I'm working on. Um, but it's not online. So that would be a comic book versus her Sarah Scribbles, which is a webcomic.
Right. Okay. All right. See, I'm understanding it a little bit better now.
See
Um,
you smelling what I'm stepping in?
I'm smelling what you're stepping in. So, wait. So, what do we talked about comics in the media, correct? And what we
Yeah.
wish would be in media. So, let me ask you on the flip side,
Mhm.
what do you think? What are some media you think would work well as a comic?
Um,
Or do you think
Obviously other
once it's,
than things that
I was
are
gonna say,
already
or do you think
yeah.
once it's in the mainstream media, it's just not doing so well, or like what show wasn't doing well in mainstream that would do better as a web com or not comic? We'll just say comic in general,
Yeah.
because
I
I
th-
have a few that I think would work better as a comic, but not into like mainstream visual media.
um so like I think it happens more often than you, not you specifically,
Yeah, yeah,
general
yeah,
you
yeah,
would
yeah, yeah.
realize is that like there are a lot of things that are cross media. Like,
Yes,
did you know that there's a Labyrinth manga
yes,
series
yes,
based off David Bowie's Labyrinth?
yes. I did know that.
Like, because we're obviously huge anime nerds that read any manga we could get our hands on.
I was about to say,
Calling myself out here.
I also read what was it? There was a comic for The Last Unicorn. I recently read that. I think I told you about that too.
You had told me about that.
Yeah, I've read that. I've read like you know, I was the nerd who would read Sonic comics. That's a good one. Cuz Sonic, after the video game they made comics. You
Like the
know,
Blue Hedgehog Sonic.
Yeah, because my brother was obsessed with he was
Oh
obsessed
yeah,
with,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, he's going to hate me for saying that, but he was obsessed with Sonic the
Call him out.
Hedgehog as a young
Call him
child.
out.
I'm calling him out.
Embarrass him.
And he would buy the comics for those. And so
Yeah.
when he bought them, I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about. So of course I read some of his comics. Just don't tell him. But I remember reading them, and I was just like, oh, there was an actual story to these comics. Like this is an actual thing. They're building a world through the Sonic games, And I get that there's a lot of cross media, but I'm pointing some out that aren't cross media.
Right.
Like I would love to have seen Game of Thrones as not only as a book but as a comic.
Mm,
I feel like you could animate it in a way that would be just wonderful to see. And this is Game of Thrones. And honestly, I've never read the books. They're a hard read, in my personal opinion. I
yeah.
didn't watch the show um, because the show would just get too much for me to watch
Yeah.
visually. I think I've told you about this. However, if
Yeah.
I read it, I would have loved it to see it as a
Yeah.
comic. Like I would have loved to see that as a comic because gore in comics do not bother me. I have I think it was a Gene Simmons horror comic. I know that sounds so weird.
No, I think I know which one you're talking about. So
I
like
have a horror comic that I love reading, and I love the art of gore in comics, which is so weird to say. I would have loved to see Game of Thrones as a comic because I
yeah.
feel like I would be more invested in such a thing reading
But
it
you see
instead
what
of
I'm talking
watching.
about. You're like Gene Simmons. I'm like you the general you again,
Yes.
sorry. General you like you don't fully realize like how common it is until you really sit down and think about it.
Oh yeah, no,
That
there
it
also
is
what was it? Courtney Love. She's a singer. Was a singer. I mean, it was a big thing. She made a
Princess
manga.
I.
Yep, exactly. So
Yep.
like, I remember there was a lot of artists who would make comics and such like that. Which is again, when I was
But
younger,
that
I thought
was
it was like,
right.
it blew
This
my
was kind
mind.
of like in our peak time of when we're like, I can consume like 30 manga a day, kind of
Yeah.
like
Oh my god, I'm old
in
now.
the
I'm
and like this
old.
is like very common for us. So it's like, oh yeah, this is the thing, this thing. I I'm a superhero person, so I love Batman, like I love Marvel
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So it's like hard not to think like that. Because like I know that there's like the X-Men comic books that have been turned into movies, but I've also
Right.
read like a Japanese manga adaptation
Adaptation.
that was actually pretty cute, and I'm mad that they didn't continue it. I was really enjoying it.
Oh no.
Um, so I agree with you. I wouldn't mind having like a condensed version, a streamlined version of Game of Thrones in like a graphic novel kind of series.
I just want to see the gore in a way that's easy for me to
For you.
digest
Yeah.
personally. Because like I don't like watching stuff like that. Like I have a love hate relationships with horror movies for that reason, and yet I
Yeah.
do like horror. I love reading horror books, and
Mhm.
imagine my imagination will go crazy. I love reading
Yeah.
horror comics for that reason as well. Like I'd love to see it, but watching horror in media is like it. I don't know why. There's just something about horror and watching it that my brain is like, okay, no, this isn't the same. Even though it is the same, but it's not the same. So the
What
gore
I
is
would
is so much harder for me to see, especially if I see it. Like I told you, I have like a phobia of something piercing or slicing skin or anything
Yep.
like that. So seeing like people get chopped or shit like that, that would irk me. And I'm just like, there's a lot of it in Game of Thrones. There's just a lot of that shit. Um,
I,
but yeah, like we can stop. I say Game of Thrones because that to me is something personal that I think
I
I personally would enjoy.
but that's like a big thing that
Yeah.
hasn't doesn't have, or at least to our knowledge, doesn't have like a mainstream comic.
No, I don't think so.
Um of any sort, manhwa, manga, like fan art kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing that
Mm-hmm.
we're aware of, or fan comic that we're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I personally would like to have a Witcher comic
I did.
because I don't know if you know this. I learned this watching like the behind the scenes feature of The Witcher is that it's a Polish book
Oh
series.
no, I didn't know that.
Right, it's a book series. That's what the
Mm.
games are based off, are books. I want to read the books because I'm a book nerd. But the games are based off these books, and
Mm-hmm.
the movie or the show is based off the books as well, telling a different perspective, still
How
canonical
interesting.
from the game, because it's a series of books. It has so much content that you could justifiably do a graphic novel with an even different perspective or an even different storyline.
Oh, check out the chat. The Witcher actually has an ongoing comic from Dark Horse.
And of course it would be
Oh
Dark
my
Horse,
god.
because Dark Horse is fantastic for that subject.
Right.
But yeah, there we go.
Well, now we
Cover
need to
all the
read it. Yeah, I was about to say, goodness, now we gotta read it because, like, so I'm trying to think.
but
Is there? Yeah, that's a good example. I would love to see. I think it's more of the fantasy,
yeah,
or sci-fi that I would love to see in comics because that's how it started. It was like, I think it would translate well in
one
comics.
that isn't or like it. You've heard me talk about my favorite author, one of my favorite authors, Anne McCaffrey. She has
Yes.
since passed. Um, and there have been talks for years about them trying to work on a show or a movie based off
Mm-hmm.
her Pern or Universe of Pern. And like, yes, I would love to see that, but also personally, I would love to see that in a comic book. I'd love
Mm.
to see the dragons.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the world. I'd love to see the people. Like I'm so obsessed with this that I have like the People of Pern concept art book.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's cool
But these are
though.
dated. These are like very 70s style like
Oh,
drawings and
obviously.
stuff like that.
Right.
I'm like I still love it because like I know what like I know the era that these books were written in. So I'm like, okay, we're fine with this. But I'm like I want to see like a beautiful comic book graphic novel of this because it has dragons. It has huge dragons of different colors and different sizes and like an alien planet, so it's like alien fauna, and I want to see it.
Oh, yes. I I will say for sure that I think with art, with you know, I will say this between visual media like
Mhm,
or shows,
mhm,
television shows and movies separate
mhm,
from web comics or comics in
mhm,
general. The art will translate better in a comic because you have free reign. You're not
mhm.
restricted by whatever TV movie can, you're not bound by that kind of money. You can
Right.
draw
Yeah.
whatever, which makes wanting fantasy and sci-fi or sci-fi fantasy much more, I guess, I crave that more because
Yeah.
in the art, you were literally not restricted by what your imagination can do. Whereas when you
Right.
try and translate that to television or like film, you are because you cannot really portray that, not exactly what you would like to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is
Oh,
why I feel like comics or just art in general like that will never die out when you have like that kind of imagination. Um, I wish I just you know what I do wish? I wish the comics or web comics or anything didn't have like a stigma of like, oh, well, you're such a nerd. What are you doing reading comics? Because if you
this is
see the
like this
visual
makes me
art,
want to throw hands like when people are like anime is for children. Like
oh my god, let me show them
no, it's
Higurashi.
not.
Let me show them Higurashi because it's a
Let
horror
me show them some
anime.
Helsing Ultimate. Let me throw
Yes,
hands
bring
because I'm
it.
like
Let me
yes,
let
like
them read or like, oh, comics are for kids. Let me bring out my Gene Simmons comic. Let's see if that's
let
no.
me pull out.
Zamer, you hush. Zamer, you hush. You strike that from the thing. Um
Do
but
I need?
yeah.
I will come in. Abby will come in with her moderator status and strike some justice if I need to.
Wait,
Zamer,
do
I
I have mod
will.
status? I probably don't. Do I?
I don't think so.
Oh, I need to do that for me. So I could also do that. Oh, yes, I am.
Strike some fear into Zamer. But no, like yes, there are comic books for children. There are web comics for children. I am reading Strawberry Seafoam, which is like the most moe mermaid glitter
Oh,
Sailor Moon
yes.
shit I've ever read,
Can we also talk
and
about
it's
Chris Princess Club?
but I mean, well, I wouldn't
Chris
say that
Princess Club
that's
is
necessarily for children. I would say somewhere
I would say
starting
it's
at 11
preteen.
years old,
Yeah.
so they can start
They're still
making
they're
it
still
very
kids.
common.
Right. That to
Yeah,
me is still kids though.
right.
Cuz you have like teen, you can tell it's like teen, but below that,
Yeah.
I do think Chris Princess Club other than the big words,
Mhm.
I think it's meant for kids. Like it's cute. Like kids could read it. It's easy to digest and it's really fun and so wholesome, you know?
Because it's like this is like I agree with you because what it's doing is it's introducing scenarios and handling them and addressing them in healthy ways so
Yes.
that children know how to approach these situations as they encounter them and as they
Right.
grow up. And it's like it's one of those things I'm like, shit, I wish I had this as a child, as a teenager. It was very insecure. But like Strawberry Seafoam is absolutely like bubblegum princess
Oh
Barbie
yeah.
doll. It is like that is absolutely for children.
Same with Tokyo Mew Mew. Love Tokyo Mew Mew. Fight me.
Uh,
I love Tokyo Mew Mew. Read that in my teen years. Yes, it was meant for
right.
kids. Still love it. Still like it.
I don't
Same.
know if I would necessarily say Tokyo Mew Mew is for children. I would say it would be in the same age group as Cursed Princess Club.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying. They're kids though. That's why. Okay, you're thinking
okay,
5 or 6 years old or whatever, but they can't read.
I would like from like 11 to like 6. Okay, that's children. And then when you get to like 12 to like 99, those are teenagers.
No, I think there is a certain degree for preteen because let's say I'll give them Tokyo Mew Mew,
Mm.
but I wouldn't give them like what's a good, I guess teen-ish. I wouldn't give them Princess Eye. We'll do that.
Yeah.
That is a
I would
difference.
save that for like 15
That's what I'm
plus.
saying. Like there is a difference even with teens. So Tokyo Mew Mew or Shugachara, I think however you pronounce that.
Is that the one with the little like spades and hearts little?
Yes.
Okay.
Cardcaptor Sakura. Those are the generally for young kids. From I would say between 8 to 12. That kind of age range.
Clamp is all over the fucking place, by the
Yeah.
way.
True. Gantz, get out of here with that. But like, yes, that to me would be, I would say 8 to 12 or 13.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily teens. You wouldn't let them read shit like Princess Eye, but they're still young enough to be able to appreciate that kind of thing. Which is why I'm like they're still kids.
I was about
Eight-year-olds
to
are
say,
still
still
kids.
didn't stop me.
No, obviously not. My youngest, or I guess my niece right now, she
Yeah.
just turned 8 years old, and now she's reading a lot of things, and wants to be like cute and all that. Honestly, I would love to see her pick up some. What was it?
Should I
Cute.
introduce her to Coraline?
Oh no, don't do that. She gets scared
What?
easily.
She would
She
have
gets
a
scared
blast with it.
easily.
It's so
No,
fucking
she gets
good.
scared easily. No. No, Zamer, no, we're not doing that.
Yes! Thank
No,
you, Zamer. She would love it as
she gets
long as she
scared
doesn't.
easily. No, I'm not letting
Okay,
her do
okay.
that.
So there's a book, there's the graphic novel, and then there's the movie. I would definitely introduce her to the movie first and then back her
I
into the
so
novel.
I remember I was taking a friend. So it was just years ago. This is a story that I remember very vividly. She was around the age of my niece. Let's go with there. She's around that
Okay.
age, maybe like 6 or 7 years old. She
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to see Coraline. She really wanted to see Coraline, and I was like, I think it's a little scary for her. But her mom didn't want to go watch it with her. She wanted to watch more of an adult movie with my sister and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? I love kids' movies. We'll watch Coraline. Whatever. She got so scared, like so scared in the theater. And I had to hold, but my friend's kid. I was like, "It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know when the scary part's over." And of course, she loved the fantasy of the stop motion and everything, so I let her see that and stuff like that. But after seeing how bad it scared her, because my friend would be like, "Hey, yeah, that actually was scary," and I was like, "Yeah, I told you, this wasn't meant for her like age. It was just too scary." Um, I said I would never ever do that for kids who are just easily scared like that, because there are some brave kids out there, but there are
Mhm.
some ones that are just too scared. And that was one of those instances, which is why I'm like, I would be very careful to show my niece such a thing. And this was like years ago, like years and years ago. So I don't know if the girl grew up loving Coraline or not, but if she was terrified of the movie, I would not I wouldn't blame her, because this shit's scary for kids. Can she handle
Zamer.
Disney's scary interpretation of Zeus being a family man? She don't know nothing about mythology. It's not. It's too easy for her. We're like, no, no, no.
I don't know what insults me more about Disney's Hercules is them making Zeus a family man or making Hades the bad guy. I don't know what insults me more.
I don't know. Hades just wants recognition. Like, okay, we'll talk about this at a later time about whose
Yeah,
Disney villain is
because we'll
actually
go on a
like,
full podcast about
obviously.
anything Disney.
Of course. But since we're almost done, we could wrap this up, I guess. What are your final recommendations, webcomic wise, that you would love to share? I know we talked about it, but if you could choose one, if you could choose one web comic, what would it be?
Okay.
And it can't be Lore
Do
Olympus because everybody
I was
knows
about
Lore
to say,
Olympus.
let's not do something that gets ads like literally everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed.
Uh, let's see here. What is
Wait, hold up. That would be a multi-parter considering a lot of villains has reasonable arguments. Agreed. But I would love to talk one day about, the Disney villains being actual like, hmm, hmm, hmm. All right. Anyway,
um?
continue.
I think the one that I am most likely to suggest that isn't getting like a lot of recognition or has someone that's getting a lot of recognition.
Yes,
Because
I
I
was
was
gonna do
gonna
the
do
same.
Bloodstain, but I'm
Oh
like,
yes.
but she's getting a lot of attention for Punderworld, and people are likely to go to Bloodstain from that.
Yeah. Well, it's
And like
okay.
I
I would say
can't
Bloodstain is still
do
just as good.
right. Well, like, but still, like, I would say, like, Nightmare Factory. Well, a lot of people are gonna know about Nightmare Factory because Snail Lords does freaking romance that's, like,
Yeah.
huge right now.
Mm.
Uh, I'm gonna do two. I'm gonna do, like, a smaller one and then kind of a bigger one. Dream Constellations. Constellation, it's singular. Dream
Oh
Constellation.
yes.
It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. It's on the shorter side. Kind of trippy. I'm still not really sure what's going on with the storyline because it's very subtle and low key and isn't complete. And
Right.
then the
Oh,
other
okay.
one is kind of a little on the horror-y side. It's the Dummy's Dummy.
The
I
dummy's
think I've
dummy. Okay.
um and it's about this little girl that can see ghosts and she
Oh.
has this like jigsaw kind of style marionette puppet that goes around and protects her
Mm.
from possessed and evil toys.
Oh wow.
And the art on both of those are
Jigsaw puppet? Nope.
gorgeous. No, like he's. If I were to tell you, it's like a marionette kind of puppet. It's kind of like that one that has the mouth that moves, kind of like Jigsaw.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's not. The the or the dummy in this is much more clean, very stylized. He's kind of cute because it's designed to
Oh,
be a child's toy, so he's gonna be cute.
right.
So he's not his innate features aren't scary. He can be scary when he has to turn scary to kill something evil. But
Yeah.
he's not his everyday look is not scary.
Okay. I
What? You gonna be a little bitch,
Yeah,
Zamer? You can't
no.
handle
Oh,
it?
good enough for me. No. So I would suggest these. As much as I love action and adventure and like whatever, I'm gonna throw some comedy in here.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
would love for you guys to give this is like just a slice of life kind of comic to My Name is Death. It's I believe
Yes.
it's a funny freaking
It's so funny.
it's a funny freaking comic, okay? Would you consider it slice of life? Because technically it's death, so slice of death. It's cute. It is so cute, and it's just hilarious. So if you
It's
don't,
just like this mini comic kind of thing, kind of like in
yes,
the it's kind of has like the Sarah Scribbles / War and Peas kind
yeah,
of feel to it. I you Ricey suggested it to me. It is so fucking
it is
funny.
good. It's a
I
good
love it.
comic, and with all
It's
the,
cute.
it's like a comic you can read once you've had enough of just, I guess,
So a
drama.
heavy story.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
with
a
heavy
really heavy
story and
story.
drama, then you could read that and be like, okay, this shit's funny. I would suggest My Name is Death. I really would like to send some more love that way because I believe it's played by a Latino or Hispanic because it was originally in Spanish before they translated it to English. So props to them. And then I would also love to share some love to wait, let's see if I can find it. It's on on my list. Uh Zomcom. But I think it's a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
popular. It's like, again, a slice of life kind of comic, which is just super cute. It's just cute. It's funny, but it's absolutely adorable, and it involves monsters. So check those out. Those are like really, really good. Um, just comics to kind of like, even if you're not into the whole drama and all of that, it's something that will just, ease your mind, and you don't have to, like, I guess,
It's like, oh, I
get
have
too
binged
involved.
way too much on this story. Time to go lighten the mood.
Yes. It's just like a nice break. And honestly, I still love reading it. It puts a smile on my face, and that's all I need it for, to do, like, comedy.
Yep.
Really cute. That's
These
all
are
I
fun.
need.
Those
Yeah.
are cute.
Those are
Great
really cute.
suggestions.
Thank you. No, I just wanted something nice and easy for you guys to read, especially if those who haven't read a lot of webcomics or anything and you kind of
Yeah.
don't know what to read. I suggest you start with slice of life, or like comedy kind of stuff. Because once you start laughing, you'll be like, okay, I want something a little bit more serious, and
Yeah.
then go from there. That I would suggest. Those are my suggestions. Just a good laugh. So yeah, those are what I would say.
Oh, like I would suggest that find a series that you would recognize that you've seen online. Like Little Trash Maid is on Webtoons,
Oh
Sarah
yes,
Scribbles is on Webtoons, War and
agreed.
Peas is
Yes.
on
Mm-hmm.
Webtoons, Murs is on Webtoons. And then at the bottom they give
Book
you
of Adam.
like when you finish a chapter, they give you other suggestions of it's like, oh,
Yes.
if you like this one, you may want to check these out. And you can
Or
go from there.
I should also
They'll
suggest.
lead you into a rabbit hole.
Oh yes, but it's good. I will also suggest, if you like K dramas or C dramas or J dramas or just dramas in general, or telenovelas, then may I suggest Sub Zero.
Girl, you got me into that and then
That's
just
a
left
good.
me.
I
You
know,
got
it's
me into
so
that
good.
and abandoned me.
If y'all want something like that, that's literally a drama or a telenovela in the form of a comic.
It's
Just letting
good
it go.
too.
It's really good. But just a heads up. I have a lot of recommendations. Let me just tell you,
We
it's
have so many
so good.
recommendations.
I've read a lot of comics. But yeah, those are my things. I said 3 instead of 2, but I had to give some love to Sub Zero.
Especially since you drug me into it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
no, like,
true.
alright, I guess, like, we need to cut ourselves off before we keep going, girl.
Oh yeah. All
Because
right.
we'll go for another 2 hours.
I freaking love comics. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We will be continuing next week with a new topic that may or may not be Disney related. Who knows? Because we always tend to go that way, or just
When
like
in
film.
doubt, go Disney.
I mean, I would love to talk about video games one day because I have a lot of opinions I need to tell about video games.
You opinions on this podcast?
Yeah,
How
of
dare?
course. No, because I think we've done every form of media except video games, and that's something we really need to talk about as well. Um,
We haven't dove into books, but we mention books more than we mention games, though.
that's true. But books could be, like, for me, web comics or
Comic books, yeah.
comic books or books or yeah, classics. But
Books
yeah,
to smack you with.
we
Books
got a
to
lot of
read.
topics to talk about. Like a lot of it. So just join us next week. Thank you guys so much for watching us, and we hope you have a great start to your weekend. But yeah, until next week, we'll see you then. Have a good day. Want to say bye?
Bye bye. Bye bye.